Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Firstly, you know, that's the first time I've seen that video. And, you know, it is touching because there's so many experiences you go through in life and to be at this position. But something I'll draw your attention to, I'm glad it's not up there right now, but I'm kind of wondering how many people noticed it. You know, I've started a lot of things late in life. And one of them was playing hockey. And so I never started playing hockey until I was 33 years old. And I was basically, we were starting a church team, and they said, look, could you stay after church? Anyone who wants to play hockey, and we're going to start a league in St. John. And I said, you know, I'll do that. I would like to play hockey. So I came back at the end. We all talked, and they had forward, they had defense, they had center. They didn't have a goalie. I said, well, I'll play net. So no one asked me if I'd ever played net. They just need a goalie. And I thought, well, I'm big enough. I'll be able to fit in between the pipes. So I realized the pipes were wider than I thought. And so I had my first game, and I got my equipment on, took it home, boarded it, and got to my first game, and we won, 15-14. The other guy wasn't any good either. So that shot you saw in the hockey rink, that was boot hockey just a few weeks ago up at the lake. And when we had, the night before that, we actually had a New Year's Eve. My mom was 98 on December 31st. So we played a little tournament on the ice. And so I was playing goalie once again. But that net, that is good. I mean, I just had to be there. But I had a goals against average of 3 when I was really playing with a real net, and I still had an average of 3 with that one. So anyway, hockey wasn't my career. So firstly, I just want to say, bonsoir mes amis, c'est un plaisir.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you.
It's an honor for me to be here tonight. Every day since our government was sworn in, I felt the honor, the history, and the heavy responsibility that comes with the job of Premier. But as great an honor it is to be here, first and foremost, the Premier is a citizen of this province.
I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event once again this year. In a world of tweets and sound bites, this remains one chance for the Premier to speak directly to citizens and explain the plan for restoring the New Brunswick dream. Tonight, I want to explain that mission to you, and I humbly ask your support.
Some people ask me why I would take this job on at this stage in my life. The answer is simple, really. My wife thought she couldn't live with me in retirement. She said that, you know, with all I learned in finance, with all the experiences that I've learned over the years, it was an opportunity to put that to work. And I could enjoy retirement. I like a lot of things. I'd like to volunteer, spend more time snowmobiling, skiing in the winter, and then the motorcycle. We had on our bucket list a trip across Canada on the motorcycle. By the time I get ready for that, you know, it's going to be tense. But that's why they invented spiders, though, isn't it? A spider's a 3-railed motorcycle, for those of you that don't know. We could spend more time with grandchildren. But I've delayed that retirement with the hopes of making a difference right here in New Brunswick. I want to ensure that we have the options to stay in New Brunswick, the options that I had when I graduated many years ago. I want others to fulfill the New Brunswick dream, the very dream that Marcia and I fulfilled with our kids growing up right here in this province. I stand here tonight because we were blessed with that dream. I got a top-notch education in New Brunswick. And still, I appreciate your comments about a mechanical engineer. Yes, indeed, yes. I'm the engineering group over here. I married my high school sweetheart, Marcia. We raised 4 beautiful children, and we built a career that we were both proud of. My kids grew up in close proximity to their grandparents, and I'm still fortunate enough to drive home to Forest City on weekends, well, not as many weekends as there used to be, to visit my 98-year-old mother. Now, your New Brunswick dream may be different than mine. It should be. For starters, you can't marry Marcia. She's still with me. But whatever your dream is, you should be able to live it at home, in the place you love, working with the people you love. My commitment to you is to do everything in my power with the team that we have to ensure that we have that opportunity to do that right here in New Brunswick. I haven't always followed the usual political path. In the leadership race and in the election, I avoided making costly promises. I started this job with no IOUs to supporters or no expensive big-ticket election promises to voters. Some of you, I know, wrote us off. Last year, even Marshall, kind of giving me a shot about our finances, said that, well, I'm selling chocolate bars out in the foyer and encouraged everyone to buy. It worked. Thank you, Marshall. And in addition, as we moved on through the year, we added important options, which you've already mentioned. First order of business, get chocolate milk back. New Brunswickers sent a clear message in this election. One, as Marshall pointed out, we haven't seen for 100 years, but one we need to pay attention to. Sommes le Premier Ministre Government Minoritaire.
This is, in New Brunswick, the first minority government in almost a century. New Brunswick decided to send a clear message that they do not want politics as usual. That suits me just fine.
I believe that too often politics gets in the way of good government. We have seen a lot of decisions that were driven by the next headline or the next question period or the next election. Our team made a commitment to each other and to New Brunswick. We will have evidence drive our decisions, not the other way around. Usually a new government rushes off all of its projects and spending into the first year so they can run up a bigger deficit and blame it on the past government. We did not do that. We sent a clear message to credit rating agencies and investors by controlling spending in this fiscal year, in addition to the decisions made in the capital budget. We took immediate action on crucial issues. We lowered WorkSafe premiums that were devastating to businesses. We met the ambulance crisis head-on, working with our colleagues, and found solutions that save lives and respect language rights. We reviewed early child care programs and kept them. We didn't ask, whose idea was it? We asked if the long-term return on investment was there and worth it. As I share our mission with you here tonight, I want to show you a couple of things that truly jumped out at me upon taking office. The first, in the last 4 years, government took in $1 billion more in revenue than it did in 2014. $1 billion per year, mostly through higher taxes. That's a lost opportunity. We continue to borrow money to pay our bills. Yet, we were second last in Canada in economic growth. Our social program indicators, from literacy scores to child poverty rates to surgical wait times, did not improve. $1 billion is a lot of money. It's nearly $3,000 for every working person in New Brunswick. We are incredibly reliant upon public money to keep the economy going. And that is the problem. If an economic plan is built around taking another $1 billion in taxes from a workforce of 320,000 people every time things get tough, you don't have an economic plan. We will not be raising new taxes for government coffers. I have a graph here I'd like to draw your attention to, and I have a laser pointer, but I'm just waiting for an opportunity to use this for a long time. Basically, and it still works, this is good. Basically, what I want to show you here is looking back to 2008 range, you're seeing where public sector, so this is public sector spending right here in the deep blue, and this is, public sector in the gray. The deep blue, it's private sector. So you can see the differential was about 2 to 1. And it should be that way. There should be more private sector spending than public sector spending by a factor about 2 to 1. Look what's happened over the years. We had a peak here, and then you see where we are now. Public sector and private sector spending is matching. That is not a future for sustainable economic growth. And if that goes the other way even more, then you become a situation where less people are paying more to finance projects to create employment, projects that are invented. That's not innovation. That's a recipe to continue spiraling into a deep hole. This slide clearly shows the challenge. Si notre économie continue de coûter uniquement sur les dépenses publiques,
Now, if our economy continues to rely upon only public spending, then we'll be asking fewer and fewer people to pay more and more. That discourages people from starting businesses, taking risks, hiring people, and paying taxes.
Often we look around our communities and we look for hospitals and schools and arenas. Those are important, but they are not generators of wealth. They are the benefits we get when we have a strong economy that generates wealth and gets people working and paying taxes. The corner store, the family business, the local car dealership, these all generate more wealth than hospitals. They generate the private wealth that pays for public services. Our goal is simple. We want to grow the private economy so it can pay the public services that we want and that we need. And in the process, we want to reduce your taxes. That's the goal. Let's talk about what each of us can do to get there. To leave the New Brunswick dream intact for the next generation, we have to do something government does not always do. We have to act with urgency. Our Auditor General recently confirmed that New Brunswickers have more public debt per capita than Canadians anywhere else. And New Brunswickers carry one of the highest tax burdens in Canada. When a government that takes more taxes from you and hands more debt to your children and hasn't delivered results in health or education or environmental protection or child poverty, that is not a call to set up a study or convene a focus group. It's a call to action. It's a call to action with a sense of urgency. It's a call to clean up our finances urgently. It's a call to improve critical government services urgently. It's a call for a forestry management plan that ensures sustainability in an environmentally acceptable way, urgently. It's a call for a softwood lumber agreement that ensures our businesses can survive and thrive, not always on the verge, depending on the U.S. dollar exchange or the market itself. It's a call to measure results and hold government accountable, urgently. And it's a call to lower taxes, urgently. In politics as usual, governments only discover their sense of urgency as election days draw closer. We are trying to create a culture in government where the sense of urgency is not driven by our own political mortality, but by our passion for New Brunswick's future. How many people listening tonight have had friends say to them, "I can't make it to retirement, but my kids are already looking elsewhere"? And even worse, how many parents have said to their kids, "You need to leave New Brunswick to succeed"? In fact, we can succeed right here in New Brunswick, and that is the goal we're starting now. In the next 10 years, about 120,000 jobs will open up here in New Brunswick. That will be like having to replace the entire greater St. John area with new people in the next decade. For the first time in my working career, we will have more jobs than people, and it will be that way for a long time. About 75,000 of those jobs will require some kind of post-secondary education. If you took the whole campus here in Fredericton, UNB, STU, NBCC, CCNB, we would need 6 of them to fill the demand. However, it's our education focused on the needs. Do we have the right programs to meet the demands? I've been told the NBCC campus right here in Fredericton has a waiting list of 300 individuals waiting to enroll in the LPN program, a critical skill requirement for the future. So I say, what are we waiting for? We see the demands, we see the need, let's react and find a solution. That may be one benefit of being an engineer. I do like results. I like a plan. I like a Gantt chart. I like to know who's responsible. I like to know when it's going to happen. And I like to know it's going to happen now. That's the difference between us and accountants. I hope there aren't too many accountants here. I'm sorry about that. Notre défi est de...
Our challenge becomes, how do we provide the necessary services with fewer people being available? It will be less and less a financial issue, but more of a people issue. The companies that hire people will go to the places that have the people who can do the work. If we have too few people to take those jobs, those employers go elsewhere.
We need the dreamers and the doers to choose New Brunswick. That's the key to keeping the New Brunswick dream alive. I see a province small enough to collaborate and innovate, but one capable of dreaming big. That province is New Brunswick. But I also see another province, one where too often politics have trumped evidence in public policy, one where public services are seen as vehicles to create jobs instead of public trust to improve public health and literacy. I see a province that has said yes to taxes and no to industry so often that we are sending the next generation out west and beyond to do jobs that we've turned away right here at home. We are indeed at a crossroads. The province we choose to be in the next 5 years will determine whether or not my grandchildren, your grandchildren, your children see a space for their dreams right here in New Brunswick. We can keep demanding more taxes from fewer workers, but soon we will have fewer and fewer people paying more taxes because government has to keep spending and paving, that's not a typo, and subsidizing just to keep the illusions of a strong economy. Well, I'll tell you, there are no illusions coming forward from this government. We will speak what we see, we will speak what we learn, what we know, and we'll make decisions based on the facts that justify them. In 10 years, we could reach a point where one person is generating taxes for every one person who is paid from the public purse. And at that point, it gets very hard to avoid a spiral of borrowing, taxing, and watching private businesses leave. Or we can bet on the creativity and the drive of New Brunswickers. We can create conditions that make success possible for everyone who has had an idea, takes a risk, or starts a business without help from others. A premier can provide facts and urge changes, but the kind of province we will ultimately be depends not on the government we elect, but the people that we are. I'm calling on each one of us to ask, how can we each lead this change? We need a new attitude that replaces what do I get with what can I do. Every time we ask government to do something, we should ask, 30 years from now, will my grandchildren be glad that this decision was made? That is the era of big citizenship that I'm calling for here tonight. At the First Minister's meeting, I talked a lot about equalization. I want you to know this. I will never, ever fail to defend our interest in the front of any audience that I face. We will always tell our story and never shrink from asking for the tools we need to move forward. But equalization is not an end to itself. I did not get into politics to make life more comfortable for us to be a have-not province. I got into politics to get us off the list of being a have-not province. Equalization is a tool. Equalization is a tool, but the goal is a world where we do not need it. We do not want to live in fear of the decisions of others. I want to drive that part home. Right now, 36% of our budget comes from federal transfer payments. That means that huge parts of our economy and our social safety net depends on decisions that others make. Tomorrow, the equivalent of our entire healthcare system could be removed by the decision of others. New Brunswickers deserve the security of having a strong economy that can pay for public services we choose to have. It starts by getting control of our deficits and our debt. We pay 7 cents out of every tax dollar in interest on our debt. That money does not stay here at home. It goes to bondholders outside New Brunswick and outside Canada. Small decisions on interest rates made by others can affect our ability to fund schools and hospitals. One reason I was so concerned when we received a credit downgrade warning last year is because I know the human cost of that. A downgrade in our credit overnight means that we spend hundreds of millions more on borrowed money to service a debt that we already have. Notre gouvernement veut contrôler les dépenses et les emplois afin que les gens de Nouveau-Brunswick puissent contrôler leur avenir. Quand les autres nous donnent ou nous prêtent de l'argent, ils ont le contrôle. Voilà pourquoi défendre le Nouveau-Brunswick ne veut pas dire demander de l'argent aux autres. Cela veut dire demander l'équité. Et nous allons défendre le Nouveau-Brunswick. We will continue to fight the job-killing carbon tax imposed on us by the federal government. The carbon tax debate is not between those who want to deal with climate change and those who do not. In our speech from the throne, we were clear that we accept that climate change is real, man-made, and worthy of action. But the federal carbon tax is expensive, bureaucratic, and ineffective. It is also applied differently across the provinces. Why, for instance, does the federal plan make gas 16 cents a litre more expensive in Sackville than 10 minutes away in Amherst? For the federal Liberals, it's a revenue generator, not a climate policy, to the tune of $1,200 per year more in New Brunswick family will pay when fully implemented. We do not oppose the carbon tax because we're absent in the fight for a cleaner environment. We know we can meet the emission targets without taxing people more. And our goal is to meet the emission targets, and our goal is to fight the tax. With a carbon tax, everything you buy will be more expensive, and you will get a pre-election check from the federal government just in time before the election to buy your vote. But it won't cover all expenses. We're also going to stand up for free trade and fair trade across Canada. We'll happily open our markets for others, but I will expect other provinces to follow suit. It shocked me to learn, for example, that Quebec has 45 mandatory trade certification for skilled workers that allow them to insist upon only hiring locally. New Brunswick has 12 such certifications. Now, what does that mean? It means that Quebec workers can work in New Brunswick, but New Brunswick workers cannot work in Quebec. That's not fair. I've been very vocal. I've been very vocal about my frustration over Alberta's stranded oil supply. I'm going to break it down for you tonight. Alberta, is no surprise, has been feeding our families here in New Brunswick and elsewhere in the country for years with their profits from oil exports. I expected that to be an item of urgency, a crisis, in the First Minister's meeting back in December. But it wasn't. It wasn't even on the agenda. Well, we put it on the agenda. And it became a topic. But there was no interest from Quebec to even consider it. There was no interest for a utility energy corridor where we would have a national strategy, much like the railroad years and years ago. Now that a resource is stranded because it doesn't have a pipeline to move it to market, Alberta is losing $80 million a day on its oil. And anyone who thinks that won't eventually affect every province, including New Brunswick, who is being paid by the money from those resources, who in transfer payments, we're fooling ourselves. That is why we are working to build a national coalition of provinces who see the importance of a pipeline, of an energy corridor, to transition into fuels, into a clean energy environment. Provinces have a responsibility to each other to allow every Canadian to choose energy from Canadian producers rather than rely upon the cost and moral compromises of foreign oil. I know that Quebec wants to look at transmission lines to allow them to sell electricity to New England, and so they should. And we would like to work with them on that. And as a Canadian, I want that for them too. But it can't be a one-way street. It can't be all for one. It's got to be that we work together for the right reasons. We're all part of Canada. We're all part of a nation that we want strong. And this province that was so strong and helped to finance the Central Canada many years ago. The Bank of Nova Scotia formed in 1832 or somewhere in that range in Halifax. I mean, we have a history here of an economy and a strength, and now we're kind of left on the tail end of the country. Well, our days are going to change because our voice is going to be heard. I cannot be bought. If province want access to our grids and our territory to move their stranded assets, I will expect equal concern for them for our economic future. The prospect of the corridor, which I mentioned. When I say we need to grow our economy and create an opportunity, that means for everyone. You know, I want to note here tonight, in the presence of the Regional Chief Roger Augustine, who's here, and the Chief Ken Barlow, I believe, as well as other First Nations chiefs. I'm not sure where you are, but you're here tonight. And I want to make special note because I see the elected First Nations governments as true partners in what we are trying to accomplish. As First Nation governments deserve the autonomy to make their own decisions and work with us for the prosperity of New Brunswick. One area that we can work together is in the management of our salmon stocks. We will be asking the federal government to allow for management of our rivers and local fisheries at the provincial level. I believe with the council and traditional knowledge of First Nations, we can do a better job of management of declining salmon stock here than has ever been done from Ottawa. And I look forward to working with elected First Nations leaders towards a new, less paternalistic approach to governing where First Nations can truly manage their local economies. We need to look at industrial exploration and movement. We need to look at resource development. We need to look at best forestry practice. There's such an opportunity for us to work together with one goal in mind, and that's rebuilding, fixing, and seeing a New Brunswick that brings people home. Now I want to talk about something that I call 50-cent dollars. You've probably heard me mention that before. I'm calling on the federal government to provide support for priorities that move our economy forward. We need to change the belief that every dime or every time Ottawa offers us a 50-50 funding project, we need to take the deal or we are losing money. That doesn't sound like a bargain to me, something that I don't need, but I must spend money to get it. That sounds like a quick way to lose control of your own spending and your own priorities. If you had to buy a big screen TV every time Walmart offered you a 50% discount, you wouldn't be a smart shopper, but you certainly have a lot of TVs. And you'd have a big debt. Offering 50-cent dollars is a way for Ottawa to control our spending around their priorities, not New Brunswickers. And that's the difference. We have priorities, we have a voice, and we want help, but we want help in where we need it. Their needs are driven by federal election cycle, not the need to provide quality education in Doketown and a good seniors care in Shippagan. Our government will be challenging Ottawa to develop a funding model that makes them true partners to help maintain the infrastructure we already have. The highest per capita in the country, miles of roads. The #1 way we can achieve financial independence comes from developing our own natural resources. We have already started removing barriers for communities like Sussex that want the opportunities of natural gas development. Natural gas development is happening safely in nearly every other Canadian province, including British Columbia. And when I was in British Columbia, I met with Premier Horgan, and he was talking about the big project that was being built. $42 billion private sector investment of an LNG export facility. He was talking about their shale gas that they've been developing and exploiting for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And, you know, it's strange that here we have a province that can't figure out what's already being done across this country. And did you know that Alberta has more than 480,000 natural gas wells? It's time to stop making decisions for our province based on fear and start making decisions based on facts. Pour moi, défendre le nouveau.
For me, standing up for New Brunswick does not mean getting cash from others and giving up control. Standing up for New Brunswick means fighting for a fair chance to compete, create a competitive business environment, and open markets for our people, goods, and ideas.
New Brunswick will become the province to watch, not the province to finance or buy off in exchange for support. I'm often asked why I'm confident that we can lower the tax burden for New Brunswickers, get our spending under control, and still improve the results of public service. It's not because I'm an optimist, but I am. It's also because I've seen the opportunities for improvement. I believe we can have an approach to governing that encourages good decisions and empowers public servants to unleash their creativity and talents. Let me give you some examples. I recently had a chance to speak to the mayor of Moncton, Dawn Arnold, and she showed me something very interesting, how much it has cost her community to build a road to a new school built several years ago. So if we're putting new schools, if we're putting hospitals, if we're putting infrastructure, we need to have the municipalities have a voice. Where should it go? When should it be built? And how should it be built? We shouldn't just plunk it down because it's a politically correct thing to do. So that's one reason we'll work urgently with local governments reforms, so that we can work with municipalities and improve the way they do their business, because we're going to react to the needs that they have. Decisions should be made at the level closest to the community. They are the ones who can best see all of those unintended consequences. And we need to take the politics out of procurement, whether it's choosing building sites, renting offices, or trusting our asset management system to maintain our roads and infrastructure. I've had a chance to hear from a number of people who are trying to make the transition from social assistance to work. We have 36,000 people on social assistance. Roughly 20% are below the age, 20% are below 10,000 in that range, or below the age of 20. Many of them would love to be working and paying taxes, but our system doesn't allow that. They can't do a great job if they don't get the right support. I've talked to employers who've had jobs sitting open because they can't find employees. I've asked them, what if government helped? What if we found a way to help people help themselves? What if we committed to offering employment to people on social assistance? Would they do that? Would they do that in a way that we don't claw back the money that's there? We actually encourage people to want to be part of the workforce, to create a future that I'm sure every individual wants to do for themselves, because no one wants to be on the system just to be there. And the business said, yes, we'll participate. We've talked about it long enough. It's time to put action, put some people on it to work and help them to succeed. A lot of families get trapped with low rents or family incomes in locations that aren't near work. If they're paid to travel, they can't make less than they make on social assistance, or they won't do it. Yet because of that, government pays more every year. Sometimes a small investment up front can allow someone to have the dignity of work for the rest of their lives. And having a parent who works can break a cycle for the poverty of the children. And that's why we'll be reforming the social assistance program. But it'll be reformed to get action. It'll be reformed so that people can see a future, have a future, and be part of a growing New Brunswick. We apply the rules too rigidly to those who arrive in the system and just need a hand up. And because we trap people in the system, we become tolerant of those who have been in the system for years. And because of that expense, we don't give enough help to those who truly cannot work, like people with disabilities. It's time to reform our social safety net to allow more trust and flexibility for people to get work in their first year. If a ride or childcare or a housing subsidy will help people break the welfare trap, we should be empowering social workers to find a solution. Every time I ask where money is being spent, I'm saying, what's the result you're getting from that? I was asked early on about, say, oh, well, where would you cut? I said, I'll cut anywhere that we're not getting results. That shouldn't be a hard thing to do. If we're spending money without results, we should be able to do that. And I'm fortunate to say that our Minister of Finance, Ernie Steeves, has the same attitude. Right, Ernie? I was disappointed to learn that the Public Service and Teachers Union and Education Councils all warned government not to move back to entry point for early French immersion back to grade 1 without studying the results of the last changes. Even the Auditor General pointed this out as well in our last report. We have spent millions more on political change, one that led to fewer children taking immersion, more inequality in classrooms, and more children being taught by teachers without the language skills or teacher training they need. In 2018, 43.7% of grade 1 students were enrolled in French immersion. We know that fewer than 10% of the children who started immersion in grade 1 actually finished the program. Less than 10% with bilingual skills. Spending millions to return to a failed system doesn't work for me. When we look at the language tensions in New Brunswick, a lack of bilingual workers in areas like ambulance care, a lack of accessible training for adults, a sense of lost opportunity for many, we can see the results. If our education system teaches bilingualism to only an elite few without equal opportunity for all, we will never unite this province, and we'll continue to debate the language issue in this province. Our goal many jurisdictions worldwide teach all children that graduate with conversational skills in 2 or 3 or 4 languages. Why can't we do that for 2? That's why the Minister of Education will be working closely with educators, with parents, with individuals, stakeholders, to take the politics out of this decision and reach a solution that works for all children. This will be part of our plan to create a world-class education system that empowers teachers, inspires, and innovates, and makes the classroom, once again, an area of learning. Here is something else that may surprise you. We have consistently been above the Canadian average in the number of family doctors per capita. Yet so many can't access primary care. About 50,000 individuals without a family doctor. And that's because we don't have a supply problem, but rather a problem with management and distribution. This government is committed to doing away with the outdated billing system, looking at working with health professionals for solutions like nurse practitioners, looking for ways to improve the system. I've often spoken about the need for government to focus on customer service. Every taxpayer is a customer, and we need to improve customer service. People pay taxes with the expectations that deserve to be met. Government is not a business for profit, but it should be a business that delivers better service to its customers, the citizens of this province. The citizens of this province who are taxpayers. If customers do not get the value for their money, they will go elsewhere, and that's exactly what is happening. When I speak of customer service approach, it is because I want us to remember who our social programs exist for. Our healthcare system is there to provide care to the sick. Our schools are there to inspire children. Our social assistance programs are there to support families and lead them to the dignity of work. Our goal is to get spending under control and get better results from government through managing better, managing smarter. The outputs are not like a business. The goal is people, not profits. But we still have to remember we do indeed have a goal. And that's why I'll keep us focused on people with public services that we're there to serve. That approach mirrors the greater challenge. To fix our social programs for a have-not province, we need to move forward. We have to not ask what we can do, what we can get from them in jobs, what we want more for buildings, but we ask how we can be better meet the goals of serving those in need. Equally so, in our quest to fix our public finances and energize our private economy, we need to ask, what can we do for New Brunswick, and not what government can give us more of. That is why I'm so proud to say that even with only 2 months remaining in the current fiscal year, we will balance the budget in 2018-19, this fiscal year. Thank you very much to the Minister of Finance. And thank you very much to the colleagues, the deputy ministers, the deputy ministers in government, the civil servants that are looking under the hood. And we can say this with confidence because I'm convinced that they're going to deliver the results for New Brunswick. The results that we need because they're part of the solution, a key part of the solution. And it's exciting. I'm also pleased to say here tonight that the budget will continue to be balanced. In 1920, well, we can't go beyond that, maybe, we're not sure. But certainly, for as long as we're here, because that should be a given. Shouldn't be an option, it should be a given. J'ai le plaisir aussi de vous annoncer que le budget.
I also have the pleasure to tell you that the 1920 budget will also be balanced.
We wanted to show we could solve the problem here in New Brunswick with the tremendous workforce that we have in the civil service working for us each and every day. If higher transfer payments do arrive, we will have the happy choice of lowering taxes, paying down the debt, or improving our systems. Nous devrons continuer sur notre lancée.
We need to make it our common mission to have a government that works, an economy that provides opportunity, and finances we can sustain.
There are 3 introductions I'd like to make tonight. Tout d'abord, je veux féliciter les étudiants de la Université de Moncton qui ont rapporté.
Let me highlight the accomplishments of students from the Université de Moncton who recently won first place in a Canadian University Business Championship.
This is a symbol of excellence and a demonstration that we are and can be first in Canada. And there would be many other examples, and we need to find them and make people aware of just how good we can be. They're a reminder that our future depends on keeping young people with big dreams and bright futures right here in New Brunswick. Monsieur le Recteur Couturier.
Mr. Couturier, please give our congratulations to your students.
I would also like you to meet, I'm not sure where they are, two individuals that I'm aware know, Harry Cross and Donald Ian Shaw. Another individual is Ken Gould. I'll tell you for a moment, Ken Gould is unable to be here tonight. But I'm recognizing these three individuals because they are recognized by the Red Cross for donating blood over 900 times each. So any of you that have had blood transfusions, you should say thank you. And I think they're at 940 right now, currently. They remind us of the big citizenship that we need. Without citizens willing to give, no amount of spending and no amount of doctors could provide the care we need. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's a sense of a shared mission we want to inspire. That's the big citizenship our times demand. We need all hands on deck approach. Every single New Brunswicker can be part of the solution. Business owners, academic leaders, union representatives, and individuals from all walks of life. Too often we measure people by what they get out of government. We tell our union leaders to get us salary hikes. We expect mayors and MLAs to build arenas and pave roads. We expect leaders to demand our share from government, even if it shrinks the pie for others. If we all focus only on getting our share, we will be fighting more and more over less and less. In New Brunswick, where fewer talented young people stay, where businesses close because taxes are too high, where we fund entitlements, even as a basic service, goes unfunded, that won't be a province worth fighting for. But New Brunswick is worth fighting for.
New Brunswick is worth fighting for.
If you are a union leader, help us by reforming the system to find the money for wage hikes. If you're a mayor, ask first how we can lift the tide for every community in this province. If you're an opposition politician, lead with ideas, not complaints. If you're an entrepreneur, tell us what you need to take a risk and build your business. If you're a citizen, ask how you can help build your community, lift people out of poverty, and help a child learn. My former Deputy Minister of Finance, my first Deputy Minister of Finance, when I was first elected in 2010, John Mallory is here tonight. Now, John and I didn't actually hit it off when we first met. He had seen a lot of me come and go. He'd been in the system 38, 40 years. And he said, you know, I know how to deal with you guys. Really, he was that frank about it all. And I didn't know quite how to handle it. And, you know, people have said, you know, that I hate to spend $1. And well, some of that's true. But actually, in John's case, I've spent $2. John has a 2-year contract to work with us to help and work with the civil service to help us get their fiscal order or situation back under control. John retired, but he hasn't drawn from the mission to come back and help where he could. And of course, in typical government fashion, we drew up a $1 a year contract with an 18-page contract. So John once told me, Blaine, our problems will be solved when a government decides it is more important to fix New Brunswick than to be reelected. And that sums up our mission. And John, we're glad to have you back because that's our goal. Now, I'm not saying we don't want to be reelected. I'm just saying our focus is to fix government. And I believe you do what's right. You get the job done. You have results that prove it. People will recognize you for it, and you'll keep going. And that's what makes the difference. We're a government here today because 25 MLAs could not be bought. They've chosen politics. They chose politics second, province first. And my goal is to have 49 MLAs with that very same view. We're here to get the job done. That's why we're elected. And we close tonight. As we close tonight, I want to give you my word as a Premier and on behalf of our government that we will continue to put this province's needs and future above all else. There will be political pressures, to put ribbon cuttings before results, but not on my watch. There will be calls to take the easy way out by raising your taxes, but not on my watch. Some will tell us to start spending as the election draws near, and our answer will always be, not on my watch. There will be voices who will demand backroom deals for special interest or that will want a special interest. Not on my watch. Voices will urge us to go back to the safety of buying votes with taxpayers' money. Not on my watch. There's a theme here. You can join in. There will be those who try to divide us, to pit region against region, north against south, but not on my watch. Some will even tell us to lower expectations, to settle for less than big dreams with a strong economy, but not on my watch. Wherever you are tonight, I ask you to join me. When people tell us that New Brunswick's best days are behind us, raise your voices and to say, not on my watch, because I'm going to be part of raising New Brunswick, and I'm going to be part of bringing our province back on the map. And people are going to say, what happened to New Brunswick? New Brunswick's on the move. Thank you so much for being here tonight and being part of this. Thank you.